The Speaking of Cults podcast is presented solely for general informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from it is at the user's own risk. The views, information, or opinions expressed by the host and guests are solely those of the individuals involved and do not constitute medical or other professional advice. There's a universal moment many of you have experienced. It's 2 a.m. You're eating ice cream straight out of the carton and telling your friends, look, I had to break up with him. He chewed too loud. Is that logic? Is that emotion? Is that morality? What's actually driving our behavior when we make choices we later try desperately to rationalize? Here's another fun thought. You don't have to drink Kool-Aid in the jungle to be in a cult. All you need is a Twitter account and a strong opinion. Why are people so convinced they're right and everyone else is evil these days? What's turning ordinary folks into fanatics? And how can we get back to thinking like humans again? That's what we're unpacking today, using a tool I call the REM Model. Not because it's about sleeping, but because it's actually maybe going to wake some people up. Welcome to the Speaking of Cults podcast. Today we are going to be talking about why people act the way they do, from bad boyfriends to violent radicalization. We're going to explain it all using REM, R-E-M. And if you have not seen my earlier podcast on this, let's go ahead and do a little refresher, just a little bit of explanation of what it is that I'm talking about. I have put together a sort of, for lack of a better word, a model of human behavior. And while models are not all about explaining every single instance of every single thing that people do, because human beings are complicated, complex creatures. What the REM model offers is a sort of a template or a way of looking at ourselves and other people and sort of fitting in or categorizing what they're doing and why they're doing it. And REM stands for, let's go through each of the different layers. You can imagine this as a sort of 3-layer sandwich leading down, drilling down to you at the sort of bottom, below the bottom layer. At the top layer is R for reason or rationalization. And this you could think of as your public-facing spokesperson. Facts, logic, or at least the illusion of logic is what exists here in this thinking layer. This is where critical thinking lives, but you could sort of think about this layer as being in California. It's built on a lot of fault lines, which often rumble underneath and cause our facts and reasoning to tumble around or even collapse entirely. The better educated and practiced you are at critical thinking, the more structural reinforcements you're building to strengthen your rationality engine. But you have to understand that reason alone is not what is driving your life or your behavior. The next layer down, the E, is for emotion. This is what drives an awful lot of our decisions. The emotional components want comfort, safety, validation. And basically, this layer is willing to throw facts in the garbage if they get in the way. The top half of this layer is all of the emotional reactions which happen in the moment and which guide a lot of our choices in the here and now. We get angry, we get sad, we get emotional. And this is visible. Anybody can see this. We see it in ourselves, and we make decisions based on this. And sometimes those decisions override our reason. But below these in the moment emotional reactions are also emotional needs, which we also all have, even you. And these are the longer-term batteries that we have to keep charged up if we want to feel satisfied with how things are going. There are different categories of ourselves, such as our sense of justice fulfilled, our sense of community and connection to those around us, our sense of self-importance and being comfortable in our own skin. These are all emotional needs which we work over to fulfill over time. When we're prevented from doing so, we can dedicate ourselves to overcoming whatever barriers we're running into so that we can achieve what we think of as success or happiness, or at least personal satisfaction. That's the kind of reward for doing all that work. And if one or more of our emotional needs are really out of balance, such as our sense of security and stability, it can make it seem like everything is out of whack. These are very powerful motivators in our life. And below that layer is the M for morality. And this layer really is the one that's down deep, closest to who you really are, your personality or your identity. This is sort of bumped right up against that, and these layers go out from there. And the moral layer has to do with deep beliefs about right and wrong and fairness and purity and corruption. And these are often things that we think of as our lines in the sand or as non-negotiable facts or beliefs or ideas that we have. But it's more than that too. This layer, it's about what gives a person a sense of order, what makes their world make sense to them. Morality isn't just a list of rules or commandments that must be followed. It's the framework that you lay over the world that makes it make sense to you. And naturally, from that comes ideas about what should be and what shouldn't be. It's not just our personal ideas, but it's also built up of expectations and obligations and what we've been taught by those around us as acceptable behavior or manners or etiquette or how to get along. And this is pretty much where our ideas of good and bad actually come from. Now, people think that they live in the rational reason layer. And many times they do. There's lots going on there all the time. We're thinking thoughts and processing and sort of computing or calculating or calibrating or figuring out, our position and our place and problem solving and that sort of thing. It's going on all the time. But the fact is that usually the emotional layer and the moral layers are really running the show. And the rationality layer, I call rationalization as well as reason, because it's cleaning up the messes that the emotional layer and the moral layer can sometimes make, and comes up with all kinds of excuses to justify that. So let's talk about some examples of this today. Let's go into, how this works and how this might apply. Let's take an example. Let's meet Jenna and Brad. Jenna is smart, successful, and could absolutely do better than Brad. Brad is a 32-year-old man whose greatest life accomplishment is owning 3 Funko Pop shelves and remembering to pay for Netflix sometimes. Brad regularly forgets to text Jenna back, disappears for a weekend to clear his mind, and once dumped her because she didn't laugh at his Florida man meme. You and I, and literally everyone Jenna has ever met, can see Brad is a dumpster fire wearing Axe body spray. So why can't she see it? Here's how my REM model explains this. At the emotional level, Jenna feels lonely and scared that she's unlovable. Brad's half-hearted attention triggers her fear of being abandoned, so she clings harder. And at the moral layer, Jenna was raised to believe that good people don't give up on relationships. Leaving Brad feels like failing a sacred moral duty and feels disloyal. So at the rationalization layer, her brain's spokesperson is going to work and telling her things like, he's just emotionally unavailable because he's been hurt. He didn't ghost me. His phone died for 48 hours. Again. And of course, the most wonderful of thought-stopping cliches that we tell ourselves, nobody's perfect. The reality is that the emotions and the morals are running the show. The rationalization is just spinning stories to protect Jenna's self-image until she changes either the emotion, like feeling secure without Brad, or goes deeper and addresses the morality and realizes that loyalty doesn't mean putting up with nonsense. She's going to be stuck in this loop, no matter how many apologetic memes and cute things Brad sends to her. So if you think about this and you think about these layers, you might be able to yourself consider a time where you made excuses. And let me emphasize right now, in this and any other example that I ever give about this, that this is not stupidity. This is not a lack of intelligence or clarity or perspective. This is how humans think and how we get ourselves through life, meeting or trying to meet our emotional needs and do so within a moral framework so that we can be the hero of our own story and think of ourselves as good people according to what we believe and have been taught is good. It's not stupidity. Now, the other thing to point out here is that it's moral outrages or moral dilemmas which usually drive us to make big decisions or changes. We can be manipulated into those situations through influence, but we can also hold off on making those big decisions because our own emotional layer is fighting against the moral layer. We know deep down something's wrong, but our emotions are telling us 24/7 that everything is fine. So our rationalization layer works overtime to give us all the reasons we can dream up to stay in a bad situation. In such circumstances, we usually need to experience more moral conflict, such as our partners hurting or disappointing us in significant ways, before our emotions can do a kind of a disconnect and we can allow our reasoning brain to show us that we've been living in denial. Now, let's talk about Clayton. Clayton is bored, pissed off, and spends about 18 hours a day online, where the algorithm keeps feeding him truth bombs about how everything is rigged. One day, he clicks on a video titled, "The Real Reason Your Life Sucks," parentheses, not your fault. Suddenly, a charismatic guy in a tactical vest is telling him, "You've been disrespected, betrayed, robbed of your future." This is an appeal to his emotional layer. This man goes on, "And good men must fight back to restore justice," which appeals not only to the emotional layer, but also digs deep into the moral layer. Clayton is watching this, and he's not thinking logically. He's feeling. He feels angry, righteous, like he finally belongs to something bigger. Next thing you know, he's in a private Telegram chat calling strangers sheeple, talking about the day of the rope, and buying merchandise that suspiciously looks like pajamas for Civil War cosplay. So now enters reason, a little late to the party, offering statements like, "I'm not radical, I just care about freedom." Or, I'm doing research the mainstream media won't show. But again, what's really driving him is that emotional cocktail of rage and purpose and belonging, wrapped up in a moral story about good versus evil. When recruiters want to pull someone in, they target emotion and morality first, then hand them the facts they need to rationalize it all later. This is also how cults and extremist groups, they all follow this emotion and morality, which then leads to rationalization pattern. In fact, viewed through the REM lens, you can almost see how cult recruitment techniques are almost exclusively aimed at riling up our emotional layer to override our reason. The bigger and longer lasting the cult is, the better it obviously has become at those kind of manipulations. We have the whole ruin finding in Scientology as a classic example. And let's take a look at that for a second. A person comes in and they are concerned or worried or traumatized or has some kind of issue that is on their mind and is sort of chewing on them and it's messing with their emotions and could well be a situation that is directly addressed to one or more of their emotional needs. They feel alone or isolated or sad all the time. They can't connect with other people in their life, like their children or their family. They feel emotionally broken for some reason because they want to feel things, but they can't seem to make themselves feel things. There could be an infinity of issues or problems wrapped up in their emotional and moral layers, or that maybe they feel destabilized or insecure, a very, very common problem these days. So they walk into a Church of Scientology, or their friend, or more commonly a friend or a family member, tells them, hey, I got these tools, I got this stuff that could maybe help you. You should go check it out. You should come down to the church with me. We should talk with them. And the person goes down and they're conflicted, and maybe they've heard some things or maybe they haven't, but they don't really know what's what with Scientology. And they walk in and they are given a personality test and have to answer 200 very odd and even confusing questions, which further sort of riles up curiosity and confusion and sort of mystery about what this is all about. And if there is one thing, if there is one glue that will stick someone to a thing, it is mystery. So they want to know more. They want to know what this is about. They want to know why they just answered all these questions. And they sit down with somebody, the test evaluator, who sits down and tells them a few things about, a little back and forth, a little get to know you, a little question and answer about who they are and what brought them in and what's going on in their life. And then they get to this graph, which is supposedly scientifically laid out on a scale, their personality, their happiness and sadness, their ability to communicate or be withdrawn, their responsibility level or lack of responsibility, and many other, I think there's about 10 traits of personality that are laid out on this graph. And it all looks very scientific and very, very legit, if you don't know anything about science. So this person sits there and they have these confusions and emotional needs, and the test evaluator is not talking facts and figures with them. The test evaluator is going for what are the stirred up emotions in this person? Where's their attention hung up? And what is it that they feel is ruining their life? What is it that they think, if it was fixed, if it was handled, if they didn't feel this way, if they weren't conflicted about this issue, their whole life would be the next level. Everything would be wonderful, or certainly not as bad as the person thinks it is now. What is that thing? That is the ruin that the test evaluator in Scientology is looking for. And it's an emotional, moral issue or dilemma. It is not a reasoned, factual situation, and it might not even be objective reality, but it's what this person is absolutely riveted and hung up on. And so the questions are all about getting this person, this potential recruit, to talk, to say what's on their mind. What are they feeling? What are they conflicted about? And dig up that ruin. And when it is acknowledged, the power of this is so, powerful that when a test evaluator, who is somebody that this person doesn't know and hasn't met, has some degree of authority maybe, because they seem to know what they're talking about, because they seem friendly and empathetic to this potential recruit's needs, the person's willing to listen to this test evaluator, and maybe they even know what they're talking about. And so when they acknowledge this ruin, this problem, this issue, your children won't talk to you anymore. Your boss is a total jerk, and no matter what you do or how well you perform, he just has it in for you, or whatever the thing is that this person is not having their emotional needs met by the situation. The test evaluator will then say, that is clearly a massive, massive problem that you need to deal with. And guess what? We have the thing offered up on a silver platter to fix that problem and make you feel better. And just the mere hope factor that is put on the table there is enough to lift the person up to the idea that maybe something can be done about this, and they will pay over their money if they are convinced that this is true. And not, of course, everybody who walks into a Church of Scientology is not sold on this bill of goods. But if they are, usually they cannot sign up fast enough. And this is all about emotional and moral manipulation. So that same kind of manipulation happens when psychics and alternative medicine peddlers are selling their products or wares. They're almost always pushing emotional buttons, and they have measures in place to shut down any doubts or critical thinking which might get in the way. What they're trying to do is align the reason layer to work with the emotional layer and the moral layer to convince the person that signing up or buying this new thing is the best thing they could ever do for themselves. And when somebody is in need or experiencing a crisis of some kind, it's not that hard to do that. And this is why the person who is either being sold the bill of goods through pseudoscience or through religion or through ideology, the connections that are being made are emotional connections and moral-based connections. They're not connecting on the level of fact and reason, which is why when you, as their friend or family member or somebody who runs into them later in life, you go, well, that doesn't make any sense because fact. You're not at all connecting with why this person is so sold on and connected to this particular topic or issue. And that's why facts and debates and endless streams of book reading and all of this doesn't really touch any of that. So you have to ask which layer is driving the behavior. And you could even ask yourself, by the way, which layer has been driving my behavior lately? Because this REM model applies just as much to you as it does to everybody else. There's a very, very, very popular sort of theme out there that's pretty rife on social media, by the way, which is that I have it all together. I got it all figured out. It's everybody else who's the problem. And unfortunately, that's not actually how this works any more than everybody else is the traffic, and you're fine. You're not part of the traffic at all, right? It's that kind of a thing. Anyway, let's go ahead and go over a couple other examples of this. For example, there is the limited edition trap. I mean, think about this for a second. Have you ever bought something you absolutely did not need because the website said only 2 are left in stock? That wasn't reason making that choice. That was emotion going, oh my God, what if I miss out? Plus a little moral story about being a savvy shopper who doesn't miss opportunities. Then later, reason tries to justify it with, well, technically I might wear neon platform Crocs someday. That's not logic. That's panic in a trench coat. Or there's also the point of signing up. Ever find yourself agreeing to join a committee or a fundraiser or a volunteer board, even though you know you have 0 time, 0 bandwidth, and 0 actual interest? That's usually because someone pushed your moral button. Good people help. Your emotion, guilt, kicked in, and suddenly you're tabling at a bake sale at 6 a.m, wondering how your life went so wrong and what you're doing there. While your reason is going, well, it'll look good on my resume. REM strikes again. And of course, an example that I am myself all too familiar with. How many of you have ever typed out an angry 47-sentence comment on Facebook at 2 a.m. because some stranger was wrong on the internet? In the moment, you felt justified. That's emotion. You believed you were defending truth and justice, and that's morality. And then your reason came in with that little voice whispering, actually, this is a great use of your valuable time. Please carry on. Next morning, you wake up and think, what the hell was I doing? It's a classic REM cycle. So let's take a look at how to use this in real life. Before reacting to people, ask yourself, which layer am I speaking to here? When dealing with someone irrational, don't throw facts. Instead, speak to emotion or morality first. This is a great way to stop and think about what's happening inside you too. Ask yourself, what am I feeling? What moral belief is being triggered? Then, after you've looked at that, then decide how to act. You see how this works? I just wanted to give a few examples today, very, very quickly, to follow up on the podcast that I did a couple weeks ago about this, because I've gotten some questions and some very, very positive feedback from some of you out there on this model and its use in your life. And that's what it's all about. As I have been thinking about and putting this together, I've been very worried a little bit about, making sure that this doesn't present in some slick, packaged way that could be taken and used, by other people for, not so great uses, or that this be presented in a way that makes it sound like it's something that, I don't know, Werner Erhardt's doing or something, or, L. Ron Hubbard. That's not what this is for, right? This is about personal insight and personal relationships and your ability to understand yourself and understand other people. And maybe as a result of that, be able to get along with and communicate with other people from a more understanding and compassionate place, including the conversations you have with yourself, by the way. So that's kind of what this is about. And so I'm going to keep this short and sweet again this week. We're going to move toward wrapping up. But first, I want to invite you, if you have questions or things that you want help with, or situations that you think might be like we've done here today and in our first podcast on this, if you have situations you'd like sort of, I don't know, for lack of a better term, I'm just rolling this out as we're going here, but, sort of REM diagnosed. If you have something you'd like me to break down for you on this, please go ahead and write me, leave a comment in the comment section here, and let me know what your thoughts are about this. I'm very, very keen to hear your feedback about all of this. I think that because we're talking about human behavior and what drives it, it seems to me that this could be discussed across almost any area of activity. I mean, politics, parenting, social media wars. I mean, whatever, right? It seems like anything that people are doing, because what they're doing is driven by these layers of how we operate and behave, might be applicable. So you let me know what you think. Thank you for your support of my channel and my work. And if you would like me to be able to continue doing this work, this is entirely basically fan funded by you guys. You're the ones who enable me to do all the reading and research and interviews and writing and sort of compilation of all of this material so that I can present these podcasts and hopefully help you out. So, of course, you could always help me out too. Okay, you can find links below to PayPal, Patreon, and Venmo, and other areas or places where you can throw some support my way if you're interested in doing that. Thank you very much for coming around and listening to this. I hope that you will share it. I hope you will like it. Contribute to the algorithm and all that. And I will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.